This is Philippe Robert. I'm the Global Sales and Marketing Specialist here at the Kusnak practice. I am this morning with Dr. Med Katayun Hassanpour. We are together on discussing today the effects of social media on mental health, particularly among females. Thank you very much, Katayun, for being with us today.
My pleasure.
Now let's deep dive into the questions. So, third of all young women are suffering from anxiety and depression. The UK government figures suggest, as experts blame the 24/7 nature of social media. Why do you think this figure is so high?
I'm astonished that this figure is so high, actually. I can imagine about a link to exposure to social media, because social media creates ideal images of what a young woman's girl's life should look like, for example. And it also makes young women compare themselves to others. But all these pictures we see in the social media, I mean, this is not real life. All the faces, they are Photoshop, people work on their body images, everything is tuned. So this creates an artificial world. Also, at some point, reducing the female body to reducing the female being, the human being to the body, which is photoshopped and tuned so that it appears in an aesthetic way. I mean, aesthetic due to nowadays probably, how to say, fashion trends, or what is quite questionable actually, because it doesn't correlate to the female physique in many points. I think it's like creating a Barbie image, which is not real life, putting young women under pressure to look and behave in a completely unrealistic way, which then creates a gap between actual being and what is aimed at being is ideal.
Could you explain why you think there is such a direct correlation between incidences of depression and anxiety and social media?
Yes, I think that this gap that comes out, or that turns out between real life and an artificial world, that this gap is created by that it creates pressure, that there's also a lot of comparison among young females, that this also might cause anxiety, being not good enough, that it affects the self-esteem, self-worth, the feeling of self-worth, not being perfect, not ever being able to be perfect, because it's just unrealistic, as it is not real world actually. Nobody can look like a photoshopped person, if this is what is our ideal of beauty actually. Yeah, that there is a great pressure coming up from this. I mean, if we look back, for example, to the 50s and 60s, there was a completely different and much more realistic ideal of beauty that was dominating at these days about these ideals.
Right. And what do you think this link is more prevalent in females and particularly young females?
So why females and not boys or young men in comparison?
Precisely.
Yes. I can only guess, but I could imagine that it is the female body has been more exposed to aesthetic approaches actually, due to cosmetics, fashion, aesthetic surgery. There are many things also that could be done and implemented. And there are huge branches of industrial markets that address these wishes and desires. Which for young men it's less. I mean, also these markets get conquered and addressed with perfumes, with maybe sportswear, things like this. But actually also due to one major point, makeup, which is not so common in boys and young men. And also this makes us change physical appearance from the natural appearance, and which is, I think, not so much expressed in young men and boys, and also there's less expectation about it. It's for boys, I think it's more to be healthy, to be fit, to work out, to go to the gym. probably not being in shape, not being fat. But there is much, much more about it for young women. It's a whole world, I think, that is behind that. An industrial market. I mean, just starting with fingernails. I mean, there's a whole industry about all these artificial we name it, and makeup, whatever we could imagine. Hair extensions and lashes.
A girls' rights organization recently surveyed 14,000 girls and young women between age 15 and 25 in 22 countries, including the US, and it found that 1 in 5 girls have left or significantly reduced their use of a social media platform after being harassed, and 1 in 10 have changed the way they express themselves due to the abuse they received with Facebook, particularly cited. So this will have had a mental health knock-on effect, will it not?
Yes, I think we need some education and also policies how to deal with social media, especially in youth, young adults, because pictures, photos are exposed on the internet, also addressing very personal things in life, also young women or girls exposing their body, maybe also major parts of their body, or being naked or half naked. And that these data is not secure, that it is not safe, that it can be abused, misused, that it is accessible for so many people, also being judged then by others with very private photos. I think there comes up many problems from this, that exposing photos, so photos that are sent to somebody who is exposing them to the internet, that this is among 18 child pornography. This is a crime, actually. People get who do this, the perpetrators, they get also punished for that. But there is so few knowledge and awareness about that this is a crime and that this is punished. Even young perpetrators, they don't know, and most, or I don't have a figure, but at some point that this is illegal. Mm-hmm. Maybe sending a photo of your girlfriend in underwear to your friends, that this is illegal. Happen quite often among 14-year-old, 13-year-old, 15-year-old, without any awareness, common sense. So I think this happens very often.
According to another survey by the STV in Scotland, social media and the perception of the perfect lifestyle made anxiety worse in young women. Is it this pressure to be perfect and to show off? Is it this pressure that is leading to such an increased figures?
I think it's the pressure to have the perfect life, to be judged also by others. If you don't have the perfect life, if you cannot produce so many photos frequently on Instagram, and also the comparison to others. Comparing yourself to, for example, other young girls or females who maybe look better, who post more photos of looking better, giving better appearance, which is not objective, of course, but in their perception. And I think that is also that by comparing all the time to others, this also can lead to anxiety or depression in a way that someone thinks, okay, my life is not that good. I'm not that beautiful. I'm ugly. I don't have good life. I don't have a fancy car. I don't have most recent designer handbag. I think this can lead to depressive symptoms and lower self-esteem, feeling of self-worthiness.
Yeah, now I think we can see how this pressure to be perfect and show off is a real competition and particularly for females. So what can young women cut on their social media use and free themselves from such pressures associated with it, in your opinion?
I think first of all, it's very important to always keep in mind that this is not real world, that nobody looks like this, that the photos are photoshopped and tuned, that many people do a lot Nobody is born like that. People invest a lot of time and also money to do little changes in their appearance, and that this at some point can be a full-time job. Looking good or being a model, it's a full-time job. So people work out all day. And I think to reduce exposure and to wean off social media contact, I think that's very, very important and helpful. We have already the workshops for managers about digital detoxification from social media. And this is what I highly recommend also to people being exposed too much to these competition and unrealistic expectations that can never, ever be fulfilled. Liberate themselves from these influences. The other thing is what I only can recommend to everybody, girl or boy, this is independent of the sex. Never ever expose yourself on any digital platform with a photo. You would not like to see the photo 20 years later. So always be dressed appropriately. Keep in mind, if you drink alcohol, if you smoke cigarettes, if you take drugs, if you are half naked, if you really want these photos to be sent via WhatsApp or whatever digital messenger, that these photos stay on the internet, and that this is very, very private. Probably you don't want to see these photos in 10 years, 20 years, maybe even tomorrow.
And how can their families and loved ones help to wean them off social medias and hence reduce the anxiety and depression of those females?
To my mind, the most helpful is to replace virtual life by real life. For children, for example, for young people, to have maybe certain hours with the smartphone, let's say half an hour per day, for example, but to replace being on the phone or being online for hours and hours of the day, replacing that by real activities like doing sports, meeting friends, having a hobby, playing an instrument, playing the piano, playing the trumpet, playing drums, reading poetry, reading a book, having a hobby, and live your life, but not a virtual life, but live your real life, and experience things, address or notice your emotions. And I think to me, this seems to be the most helpful.
Thank you very much indeed, Katayun. We were today with Dr. Katayun Hassanpour, the specialist in psychiatric and psychology here at the Kusnak practice. We are world leaders in innovative care services. Thank you very much, Katayun.
Thank you so much, Philippe. It has been a pleasure.